back to another episode of the Skinfluence Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Dustin Portela, joined as always by my co-host, Austin.
I'm Austin Lee, physician assistant extraordinaire.
We've got a new color of the Fabletics scrubs today.
Yes, this is the May Fabletics color. It's kind of like an olive.
Yeah.
It's fun. I always enjoy seeing, changing up my wardrobe a little bit.
You get comments from patients?
I do get comments from patients, especially the ones like my Accutane patients who I see monthly. They're like, "Oh, I like that color." I'm like, "Thank you."
Yeah.
Thank you, Fabletics.
I get the most comments when I've worn my pink, salmon color scrubs.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's a good color too. I think I have a pinkish one, and at first I was like, "Oh, I don't know if I'm gonna like this," but now it's like one of my favorite ones.
Yeah, it works for sure. So today we're going to be talking about a term that I used to always think was just a buzzword and a marketing term to sell skincare products. But as we look into the science of this, there's a real phenomenon happening here, and that's around this term called inflammaging.
Inflammaging, yeah. It's one that I wasn't super familiar with, but I've heard it quite a bit on the social media platforms. It's talked about very often. And in today's day and age, longevity, inflammation, diet, all of that is kind of on the forefront of the health influencers. So it's an interesting thing.
So inflammaging is a molding of two words. Obviously, one of those is inflammation and the other is aging, and kind of molding them into two words to talk about the ways that inflammation in the body can contribute or accelerate the aging process. Mm-hmm. So that is the baseline definition of what inflammaging is, and we're, of course, going to dive into more detail on that. So let's first discuss acute versus chronic inflammation.
Yeah. So a lot of times we think of inflammation as like you sprain your ankle and boom, all of a sudden it's super swollen. But that's not quite the type of inflammation that inflammaging is referring to. Acute inflammation is something that happens like when you sprain your ankle or something to try to protect that joint or protect that area. You get a bug bite or you get a cut and it turns red pretty quickly. That's the body's way of just that acute inflammation to try to contain whatever happened to help repair the damage.
Yeah. Same like if you get strep throat, you're going to get a lot of inflammation. Your throat feels swollen, and that's the way the immune system is being brought into that area. The blood vessels are dilating, things feel congested so that more white blood cells can come in and fight off the bacteria, or if you're getting a viral infection in your sinuses. And so inflammation is a very important process in our innate immune system. That first response and that acute inflammation often prevents other problems down the road.
Totally.
But when inflammation goes on for too long, it can become inappropriate. And that's where we get into this phenomenon of chronic inflammation. And I was at a longevity summit last year in Colorado, and we were listening to a lecture on arthritis and injuries that happen to the joints, like hips and knees. And this physician had developed a protocol for when you should give things like ibuprofen or aspirin after an injury. And they were saying you want to give it, but you want to wait for a certain amount of time. I think it was 24 to 48 hours if the pain is reasonable.
Right.
Because you want some of that acute inflammation there to help start fixing things. But if somebody is at risk for long-term arthritis, you want to shut down the inflammation after 48 hours by using things like ibuprofen, naproxen, even in some cases, if it's indicated, steroids.
Totally.
Because if that inflammation can get established and it perpetuates itself, you get into chronic inflammation, which could then cause more long-term arthritis in the joints.
Yeah.
But the same kinds of processes of acute inflammation becoming chronic inflammation can affect your skin, obviously, your heart and your blood vessels, your lungs, your kidney, your liver. And so we want to make that differentiation between acute versus chronic inflammation, how both can be appropriate in the right situation, but inappropriate chronic inflammation will end up leading to signs of aging on the skin that you can see. But then also we'll talk a little bit about how it can affect the internal organs and contribute to an earlier than would be desired demise.
Right. That's an interesting tidbit there, because a lot of times you get injured, you fall, something hurts, you get a little bit of a swelling, and the first thing is gotta take ibuprofen.
Shut down that pain.
Shut down the pain. Shut down the inflammation. When it does play a good role, but let the body do its thing. And now if it's dipping into the too long of inflammation, then that's when you start taking those medications.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting. Well, you talked a little bit about how we can get inflammatory processes inside of our bodies, like in our organs, in our blood vessels, in our hearts, things like that. What are some of the visible signs of someone who is starting to have more of that chronic inflammation going on?
So there's, I think, internal signs and external signs. To start with the internal signs, I think of this as people who continually wake up stiff and sore. Like their back hurts, their joints hurt, their muscles hurt, they're just achy. They didn't necessarily just do leg day at the gym a day or two before. That's appropriate inflammation. But they just always are achy. There's always something wrong. They're getting sick much more frequently than the other people around them, because this chronic inflammation, although it is an immune response, it prevents the immune system from functioning at its optimal level.
Right.
And so you can be actually more susceptible to illness and injury than you would otherwise be. And then we get into kind of the skin signs. And I think that a lot of the skin manifestations are going to be kind of the thinning of the skin. Now, some of that's going to naturally happen with age, but people who get really thin skin, I think developing extra blood vessels on the face, which can go along with rosacea.
Sure.
There's inflammation happening there. Hollowing and dark circles under the eyes, I think, is sometimes a sign of inflammation or inflammaging in the skin. Hair loss for some people. Poor wound healing can be another example. Even if it's related to internal conditions like diabetes, there's inflammaging happening in those types of situations. So it can affect the skin in really prominent ways that people will end up coming into us to try to correct aesthetically, when in reality, there's things we can do, but sometimes we need to address what's going on inside the body too.
Right. So very often they're coming in with a very specific complaint of, my rosacea has been flaring, my perioral derm's been flaring, losing my hair, and that's a small piece of a larger puzzle. And it's difficult in today's world of medicine. We're very specialized, and so it's hard sometimes to take a step back and look at the whole picture of what is going on. One of the things that I think also could happen is very often we'll get patients coming in and they're a little bit edgy, a little bit grumpy, maybe a little short with the medical staff. And what I've found is very often when a medical assistant's presenting a patient, they say they seem really grumpy. It's often because they are in chronic pain. Yeah. So they're coming in and they're not sleeping well, they're not getting good rest, and they're just always sore. They're always achy. And when you address that with them, you see that kind of melt away a little bit when you're saying, are you in pain? Or when you wake up, and especially with patients who have conditions like psoriasis or things like that. But that could there's lots of different ways that people will manifest inflammation. That's interesting.
I've had patients come in for poison ivy. You know, they got into a patch of poison ivy, and you're like, all right, we got to shut this down. I know you're miserable. You're not sleeping. I'm going to give you some steroids. Yeah. And they come back a month later, and I'm like, all right, how's everything? And they're like, I felt great. Yeah. Because the prednisone just wiped out all the inflammation in their whole body. Like, my knees didn't hurt. My back didn't hurt.
I was mowing the lawn.
And so that speaks to this underlying level of inflammation. Obviously, that's not related to the acute attack of poison ivy, but it tells us that there's a lot of stuff going on in this person's body that could be addressed. And there's a lot of different drivers of this chronic inflammation that we subject ourselves to, or that we are subjected to in our day-to-day lives and in the environment.
Totally. One of the biggest ones, and I think it's all over the news and everything, is our diet. Yeah. There is a big push to try to eat more clean, eat less processed foods, try to drink things that have less chemicals, more natural things than, the synthetic sugars and things like that. But diet is a big. It probably plays a bigger role in inflammation in our bodies than we even realize.
Oh, it absolutely does. And I can notice this even in myself, and I don't consider myself old. Ask my kids, they'll say I'm old. But I know that if I have a really carb-heavy meal and then I have a dessert that has tons of sugar, I will be a little bit sore in the morning. Yes. And I'll feel sluggish and have maybe even a little bit of brain fog. And so when you have high like a high glycemic load, or you're continually overeating in calories and sugar, your body has to try to compensate for that by releasing more insulin. And if you can't handle all of the insulin, then the body has to do something with it. And you're going to get more glycosylation of your hemoglobin. Yeah. That's what we measure as the hemoglobin A1C to test for diabetes. But other tissues in the body can undergo glycosylation, including your skin. And so when you get sugar molecules attaching to different cells or enzymes, they don't function as well. And this product from Skin Better Science, I don't know if you've tried their oral supplement that Skin Better came out with.
I haven't tried the oral one.
Yeah. So they came out with one, and the whole purpose of this supplement was to reduce glycosylation on your skin cells.
That's interesting.
And they had some science that showed that. But that's directly related to the diet. We eat a lot of processed foods that are very calorie dense, that have way more sugar, added sugars than we need. And that is one of the major drivers of inflammation. And it's probably the way that I feel it most in my life. If I have a little stretch of not eating so good, I definitely feel it.
Yeah. I've been backing off on caffeine, and I've been backing off of carb heavy and highly processed foods. Today I had half a donut.
Yeah.
And I like 20 minutes later, I was like, I feel so sick. And it happens so quickly.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I think we just kind of get used to just not feeling great. It becomes our normal.
Right.
And then when you stop eating those things, I can't say that I was like feeling amazing, but then I ate something that was really carby, sugary, and I just felt bad. So
yeah. I've had that experience. And I've gone on sugar fast before.
Yeah.
Last October, my wife and I decided we were going to go sugar-free for 1 month.
Yeah.
It was going to end on Halloween, which was like the perfect day.
That's the perfect day to do it.
It took 48 to 72 hours to like not, where I'm just like not craving the sugar.
Yeah.
And then I had no problem the rest of the month.
That's wild.
Drug reps could bring in donuts or cookies and be like, I'm fine. Like, I don't feel like I crave it. And then you have that first, Snickers on Halloween, and you're like, ooh, that's really good.
Yeah.
And it's easy to be in the habit and crave it again.
Yeah.
So another method of inflammation that we're subjected to, obviously, is UV radiation.
Totally.
And environmental toxins and pollutions, depending, especially if you live in a big city where there's more smog, more vehicle exhaust, those types of things that you get exposed to, your body has to deal with.
Yeah.
And if you're subjected to a lot of UV radiation, it's going to lead directly to inflammation in the skin. A lot of environmental toxins in the air or in your occupation, your body has to try to manage that.
Yeah.
And it's going to do that through an inflammatory process. In most cases, that's the tool that our body has, is bring in the immune system, send in the white blood cells, and try to mitigate the problem that we just got exposed to.
Yeah. Another very common one is sleep. Sleep is when we're supposed to be repairing, our body's supposed to be repairing itself from what we just been exposed to throughout the day. And if you have poor sleep habits, if you're not sleeping well throughout the night, if you're waking up constantly, you're not getting the rest, if your heart rate variability really is just, it's not
too
in the
low,
right range, too low, then your body's not getting the recovery and rest it needs and will maintain an inflamed state constantly.
Yeah. I just think of it as, I don't know if you've ever had this experience where you're like trying to dig a hole or something with your kids and they're like shoveling dirt back into the hole.
Yeah, totally.
And so it's like your immune system's trying to fix a problem, but somebody else is just throwing more dirt in the hole. And when you don't sleep, there's not that recovery time, and you just pile more stuff on and more stuff on. And then the white blood cells, they never get to clock out. They're always working overtime. And then your immune system can't adapt in the ways that it needs to appropriately manage things.
Yeah.
Another way that people, sometimes we do it to ourselves, is their skincare routines get too complicated. They get over exfoliating, using too many, acids or physical exfoliators, using too many products in a routine. And if you start breaking down your skin barrier, well, it's got to have to bring in the immune system to try to fix that. But if you're continuing to insult the skin time after time, you're actually going to contribute to a chronic inflammatory state that will end up aging you faster.
Totally. Fine lines, wrinkles, uneven skin tone and texture can all be the result of chronic inflammation in the skin.
I often tell patients when we're talking about reducing pigmentation on the skin, which can happen from inflammation as well, is that there's nothing that I can give you, like a cream or a serum, that's stronger than what the sun can do to you.
Yeah.
And there's no skincare routine that can outwork an inflamed system if you're not doing the lifestyle changes to give your body a break.
Yeah.
So that's a little kind of background on some of the causes of inflammaging that we're subjected to. And let's jump into a little did you know before we get into some management techniques. So Austin, I looked this up before we got on because I've heard the term inflammaging for about 5 years in the skincare world, and I thought it was a relatively recent phenomenon. But the term inflammaging actually was coined in the year 2000, so it's 26 years old. Oh my gosh, yeah. It was coined by an Italian immunologist named Claudio Franceschi and his colleagues to describe the chronic low-grade systemic inflammation that develops and increases with age and contributes to various age-related diseases.
That's interesting. It's been around for a long time.
A lot longer than I anticipated.
Jeez, what a smart guy. He was ahead of his time by 26 years.
Yeah.
Well, I have an interesting did you know. So as our cells progress in our body, they're supposed to live and then die, and then they're supposed to go away. The body either takes care of them, gets rid of them, or they get shed off into the ether, into the air. Well, there are cells that are called senescent cells or zombie cells, where they stop functioning, but they don't fully die off. They're just kind of there. And these are some of the types of cells that as we age can lead to the looking older because those cells, they're just taking up space. They're not functioning like they should, and they're just there.
Yeah.
So, and that's why we do some of the things we do to try to get rid of them, to slow down the cell turnover rate, things like that. But these senescent or zombie cells, I just like the name zombie, I think, for those, for the inflammaging process.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've certainly heard the term, but it makes sense that they should go away and give room for a new stem cell to develop and become a functioning cell, but they're kind of just hanging out.
They're hanging out, just like zombies, just standing there.
Yeah, just time to retire.
Time to retire. They only come out at night, though.
Yeah, they only come out at night. All right, so let's transition back in, and we're going to talk about some of the things that you can do to slow aging down at the root cause level.
Right. Well, one of the things that we'd already previously discussed is shifting your diet. Eating less manufactured foods, more natural diet. I like to think of it as kind of like from the earth diet. If you can't grow it or you can't kill it, don't eat it.
Yeah.
And when you look at the stores, that's kind of the outside of the stores.
Outside of the aisles.
None of the aisles.
Yeah.
So it's, and that's a hard diet to adhere to. And I have definitely tried going the extreme and doing something like that, but I kind of live by the 80-20 rule.
Yeah.
So 80% of my diet, I try to keep really clean, and the 20% I can have fun with.
Yeah. I like the term moderation in all things, including moderation.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you sometimes got to go overboard a little bit just to live life. But this is something that I've noticed when I was in high school. I could eat whatever I wanted and have zero consequences.
Zero consequences.
I remember for one of my science classes, we had to track the calories that we ate during the day, and I was running cross country and track. And so I was putting in, 50 miles a week running.
That's a lot.
And I remember tracking the food that I ate for one day, and it was like between 5,000 and 6,000 calories. And I was like 150 pounds.
Yeah.
And I was like, where's all that going? Like 2,000 calories is the recommended daily allowance. And I'm like, more than double that.
Yeah.
And if I try to do that now, I feel awful.
I feel horrible. Yeah. I'd agree with you.
There's times where I walk through the grocery store and I'll look at something that is highly processed and added colors and flavors and all these things. And maybe sometimes it's something that I want to eat or that I've eaten before. And I'm like, maybe I should get that again. And I just look at it and I have to tell myself, this isn't real food.
Yeah.
It's not real. Like, it's manufactured in a lab by food scientists who try to tweak things to make it hyper palatable and almost get us addicted.
Totally. This is how I feel about Pop-Tarts. I love Pop-Tarts.
Do you?
I just love the frosting, I think, but if you look at it, there's nothing natural about
not
the
a thing.
Pop-Tart.
No.
And so it's just like you can get addicted to it. You can crave it, but it's not real.
Did you watch that movie on Pop-Tarts?
Is there a movie on Pop-Tarts?
There's a movie on Pop-Tarts.
No, like how they're made or something?
No, it's a comedy movie about the origin of Pop-Tarts, and it's got Jim Gaffigan in it as the head of like
way.
Kellogg's, and Jerry Seinfeld is his right-hand man.
Oh, that's
and
gonna be
Amy
funny.
Schumer is the head of Post cereal, and it takes place in like Battle Creek, Michigan.
I have not seen this.
It's kind of a funny movie.
Yeah.
And it's highly dramatized about the origin of Pop-Tarts and how the two cereal companies were trying to, get to this miraculous product first that doesn't need to be baked, it doesn't need to be refrigerated, and it's just a funny comedy movie. Probably almost none of it is real, but if you love Pop-Tarts, you might like it.
I love Pop-Tarts, and
I think it's on Netflix.
Comedies.
I saw an article a few years ago, and it talked about the food scientists that like worked on Oreos and tried to make them as addictive as possible.
Yeah.
And I remember back before all other social media, just Facebook was around, I remember posting that article and be like, I blame my mom for giving me the first one and getting me addicted because I love Oreos.
Oh, yeah.
But it has to be regular Oreos. I do not like double stuffed.
Really?
Because I like the cookie part more than the cream part.
Okay. I can get that.
Yeah.
I like both. I'm not the type where I can just eat the cream.
Yeah.
I need both, but I just love double stuffed.
Yeah. If I get, if we have double stuffed Oreos, like I open it up and I scrape half of the cream off.
Oh, no kidding.
And then I'll eat it.
That's
wild. I don't like the cream.
I think
that
you're
much.
alone in that.
I don't know. Audience, you have to tell us, are you a cookie fan or a cream fan when it comes to Oreos? Double stuffed or regular? Let us know. Send us a message on Skinfluence Pod because we really want to know the answer to this question. We need to know,
is that normal?
Yeah. Am I normal? Please tell me I'm normal. I don't need your validation. So along with the diet shifts, blood sugar stability is, I think, a critical part. And that's why the poor diet ends up making us feel bad, is because chronically elevated blood sugar. And I think it's now over half of Americans are overweight.
Yeah. And
at least a third are considered obese when we look at BMI. And there's problems with the BMI metrics. I get that. But when you've packed on extra weight, you have some level of insulin resistance, even if you're not clinically in a diabetic range. And so your blood sugar running at higher levels will contribute to inflammation.
Totally.
Plus the weight will make your joints wear out a little faster. Mm-hmm. And that's why people who are significantly overweight much more often need knee replacements, hip replacements. They get more back problems because they're carrying that load on their joints.
Totally.
But there's also just that underlying inflammation that makes things wear out faster, and it takes a toll on your heart, your blood vessels, your brain. When you're overweight, diabetic, pre-diabetic, your risk for dementia goes significantly up. Mm-hmm. So they call Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, blood sugar can be a sneaky issue because there's sugar in places you wouldn't realize sometimes. And I can remember when Starbucks started getting really big. Yeah, I remember seeing a lot of the drinks that people were getting, and I was like, first thing in the morning, you're drinking
a milkshake.
A milkshake. Yeah. Like it's just caramel syrup, whipped cream, and like. And it's just, I was like, this cannot be good for us.
It's absolutely not good for you.
Yeah. And it's just, but it's insidious. You don't think, I'm getting my coffee in the morning. And then, but next, there's like cream and whipped cream and syrups and a pump of this and a pump of that. And now you're down the road towards diabetes or pre-diabetes. So it can be a slippery slope sometimes.
Yeah. And there's, obviously we all kind of know the things we should do to have, better health, better weight. And it's the things you eat and your physical activity. But there's other tools out there you can use to kind of understand what your blood sugar does. Yeah. It should be under 100 when you wake up first thing in the morning before you've eaten anything. If you eat a meal, your blood sugar should return to baseline within 2 hours of consuming that meal. And you can track this by doing finger sticks. Even if you're not diabetic, you can walk into any pharmacy and get a little finger stick kit and see what your blood sugar is first thing in the morning. Or you can buy continual glucose monitors. Yeah. And I know that there's some pushback from the endocrinologists out there, and I think that's legitimate. I'm wearing it right now, but I have a Stelo continuous glucose monitor on my arm because I just like data and I'm a nerd that way. I like to see how my body's responding to the foods and my sleep quality. And there's no data to suggest that a healthy person without diabetes will improve their health outcomes by wearing a continuous glucose monitor.
Yeah.
So I'll give that caveat. I'm not advocating for everybody to go out and buy a CGM, and I get no kickbacks if you decide to go do that. I'm not invested in the company or anything, but I like it because then I can see. And I sat down with a dietitian at my physician's office that I go to, and we looked at the way my blood sugar responds to meals and what I'm waking up at in the morning, because I'm working with them on longevity so I can feel good and stay healthy as long as possible.
Yeah.
And there's tools out there if you want to try them. You can get the Stelo without a prescription. And I think it's a useful tool, but I don't want to give anybody the opinion that it's going to make you live longer or be healthier, because we just don't have the data to say that. I feel like the data is useful for me, and I'm a case study of one.
Yeah. And it's interesting to know how your body functions and if it's functioning the right way. Another thing that you could do to help calm down inflammation in your body is, like we've talked about, sleep hygiene.
Yeah.
Developing a sleep routine at nighttime, dimming the lights, no phones or screens, or if you have to do something like that, blue light glasses can be a good option to prevent that blue light from triggering your brain to be awake and alert. Reading a book, meditating, that type of thing can always be good. Red light therapy has also been shown to be
I think there's
calming,
some benefit there.
Before bed, because often when you're doing red light therapy, you're wearing a mask and you can't see great sometimes, and you're just kind of in a relaxed state. And those types of things that preparing for sleep, very often we're rushing through our days and then it's time to go to bed and we just get ready for bed quickly, take a shower and go to bed.
Yeah.
When we need to prepare for that to have a good sleep.
Yeah. Go to sleep at the same time every night, wake up at the same time. And they've even shown that, like, you don't want to sleep in on the weekends.
Yeah.
Like, you should still wake up, ideally. I don't always follow this. But if you want to sleep in on the weekends, it should be no more than a half hour later than you normally wake up during the week to keep your body in the right circadian rhythm. Yeah. But, I mean, there's times where I'm like, alarm off, don't wake me up, and I might not wake up till 9 or 9:30. Yeah. And then I had to let my wife do it the next day. You know, like totally. We take turns.
I have a natural alarm clock and a 5-year-old. Yeah. So she doesn't let
my
us
kids
do
are
that.
old enough now, they're functioning on their own. And my teenage daughter outsleeps everybody. So, So sleep hygiene, critically important, and we've covered that on other episodes as well. Totally. Stress management, a thing we've talked about as well. Mm-hmm. I still love that idea of walking for 30 minutes outside with no distractions. It's no so phones, no podcasts, no music, just listen to the sounds of nature. I had this conversation with a patient just this week about using that as a stress tool because they were getting walks in during their work day. They work by the green belt here in Boise, and they would sometimes go out and walk for 20 or 30 minutes. But it was clear that stress was driving their skin problems. They had some personal issues going on. And I'm like, keep doing the walk, but stop listening to music and podcasts. Just listen to nature and let's see if that helps. And they said, I'm going to try that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've been practicing that myself, and I love it. Mm-hmm. I find myself, I crave that moment of just peace and listening to the birds chirping because it's springtime, and it is a really good way to manage stress. Yeah,
and you're moving your body, you're getting, which kind of leads us into exercise. Totally. I think that there's a perception out there that exercise has to mean like you're working out hard for an hour every single day, but the reality is you get immense benefits from much smaller bites of exercise. Yeah. It's great if you have the time and the intention to put in more work where you're getting your heart rate up or you're lifting heavy weights. But if you don't have time for that or you don't feel motivated to do that, you can do things like gentle walking. There was a study that came out recently and they showed for blood sugar control, doing 10 body weight squats every 45 minutes was more effective than walking for 30 minutes after a meal. Really? And so interesting. If you eat a big meal and you're like, oh, I overdid it, you could go walk for 30 minutes. That's great. But doing body weight squats every 45 minutes was more effective at lowering blood sugar than the walking for 30 minutes.
It's wild.
You don't need any equipment for that.
No.
Stand in place and just squat 10 times and then stand back up 10 times.
Yeah.
So
I think we're getting to a point where we used to think we need the gym, we need the home gym, we need the weights, we need the plates, we need the subscriptions, and we're realizing we're overdoing this a lot.
Yeah.
We have the tools within our own body to achieve the results that we want.
Yeah.
Another great thing to help with inflammaging is protecting yourself from excess UV, especially during those times where the UV index is high, and that information is readily accessible on our watches, on our phones. If you're going to go outside, takes 30 seconds, check the UV index, and it'll tell you, are we in the green, are we in the orange, red? And if you're in kind of the middle of the day, high UV index time, wear that sunscreen for sure. Even towards the beginning and the end of the day, we do recommend wearing sunscreen. But if you're going to be outside, especially in the middle of the day, high UV index times, the broad spectrum sunscreens are going to protect you and slow and prevent the aging process in your skin.
Yeah, it's critical when we look at all of the different things we treat, especially in aesthetic dermatology, wrinkles, filler, Botox, lasers, microneedling. Like 90% of that can just be mitigated by sun protection early in life, and then you don't need the correction later in life.
Yeah, I get asked all the time by friends, by patients, if you could pick one thing to slow down the aging process, what would that be? And the answer is unequivocally, protect yourself from sun.
Yeah.
And you will age better.
Yeah. It's 100% true. There's other things you can do in your skincare routine to help support your skin and decrease inflammation and inflammaging. And a lot of this just goes back to keep your skincare routine simple.
Yeah.
I rely on gentle hydrating cleansers. I don't use a lot of just exfoliating cleansers.
Yeah.
I don't use mechanical or chemical exfoliating cleansers very often at all. One active in the morning, one active in the evening, sunscreen every morning, a good moisturizer at nighttime. And you're not continually insulting your skin and contributing to excess inflammation. And if you like to use a little glycolic acid or salicylic acid, maybe you have acne and you want to use some sal acid, use it judiciously. Use it when you need it, 1 or 2 times a week, if it's just for anti-aging purposes. So you do give your skin time to repair and support.
Yeah. Another thing that you can do that is that is out there is looking into supplements. Now, big supplement is becoming more and more of a problem.
Yeah.
But when people ask what supplement should I be taking in the clinic, I very often say this is something you should discuss with your primary care doctor.
Yeah.
If you don't want to be taking things if you don't need them. And so going to your primary care doctor saying, I'm considering taking supplements, or discussing things that you're feeling. If you're feeling fatigued or having pain and inflammation, you can do labs to see, are you deficient in something, and then replenishing those. I don't typically recommend patients to just go take a whole bunch of vitamins and see how it goes, because in reality, we're just peeing out most of them.
Yeah.
And you don't want to overdo certain things. I know if I overdo kind of the B vitamins, I get a headache and I just don't feel great. So figuring out what you're deficient in and then trying to supplement with that is usually how I steer my patients.
Yeah, I recently read a case report of somebody who was mega dosing on turmeric and experienced acute liver injury.
Yeah, it can hurt your liver.
And so supplements are less regulated than pharmaceuticals.
Yep.
And getting advice from influencers online is not the place, where they're saying like, this is a miracle, it's going to reduce all the inflammation in your body. Well, maybe it does in some conditions, but sometimes more of a good thing is not better for you. And so I generally, the most common supplements that I recommend in the clinic, especially for patients who are really good about their sun protection, is an oral vitamin D supplement. Sometimes nicotinamide, because there's data on skin cancer prevention with nicotinamide.
Yeah.
We may occasionally, if they don't want to do antibiotics for acne, I'll recommend quercetin or normal doses of turmeric to get some anti-inflammatory, but that's coming for a specific recommendation, and it's not universal among all my patients. It's not a blanket recommendation. Everybody should just take these 6 supplements. We measure labs on vitamin D or iron and just kind of check and say, here's what you can benefit from. We're going to do this for 90 days and we're going to recheck and make sure if you don't need it, I want to get you off it. Just like I want to get patients off pharmaceutical drugs if we can take away supplements and you're not spending the money on it, you don't have to take another pill, that's great.
Totally agree with you. And then just being consistent in your simple routine over the intensity of constant looking for the next best thing. If you find a routine that works for you, stick with that.
Yeah. You're
going to be flooded. Your phone is listening. When you start talking about things that you want to be using, you're going to get flooded with ads for this and that. But it's hard because you hear this works better than this other product. But find what works for you and stick with it. Yeah. And if you're doing that consistently over time, you'll yield good results. But if you're constantly reaching for the next best thing and you're not staying consistent, you're not going to get the results you want.
Yeah. And understand that despite doing all the best things, if you're feeling well, you're staying healthy, you're not getting sick often, you're still going to age.
Yep.
You're still going to look different in 20 years than you do today. We don't halt aging. We don't reverse aging. And so having realistic expectations about what will happen, I think is important. But have that long-term mindset to know where you're going to go. And if you're trying to do these things and you're still feeling poor, you're getting sick often, you're waking up stiff and sore, your skin seems to deteriorate, or you've got a lot of irritation, that's when you want to go talk with a dermatologist or your primary care physician and develop a plan to see what could be the source of this inflammation, the root cause, if you will. And can it be corrected pharmacologically or with supplements or with other lifestyle interventions that you're not currently doing so that you can feel as good as you want and look as good as you want for as long as you want.
Yes. Beautiful.
So as we wrap up today, we want to share a product that we use a lot in the clinic for our patients who are experiencing signs of inflammation on the skin. We'll use this for a lot of rosacea patients, a lot of post-procedure after we do some BBL laser when they have excess redness in the skin. And that is the Botanical Calming Serum from Dean Skincare. So this has green tea extract, a lot of antioxidants, hyaluronic acid, and it's just a very calming serum, just like the name says. It helps to reduce the signs of redness in the skin. It's got a little bit of a green color to it from the green tea extract. And so this is something that you can apply that's not active, that's going to strip your skin. It's just got ingredients to help calm things down. So we'll have a link to that in the podcast show notes and on the YouTube video description. And we really appreciate you guys being here on this journey. We're up to episode 47 plus the guest episodes we've done.
Yeah.
And if you haven't left us a 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts yet, please do. And we will look forward to seeing you guys on the next episode. You can follow me on all social media platforms at Dr. Dustin Portela.
You can find me on social media at Austin Lee PAC, and we hope to see you at the next one.